Everybody, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distant but technically connected. I'm Marcy Tyler, one of your co-hosts for Tremco Live, and I'm joined by my other co-host.
And I'm Paul Hookenboom. I'm the president of Tremco Construction Projects. Marcy, you know that, of course. But a tremendous collection of companies, brands, product systems, and of course, most full people, certainly our own, but of course our audience, which is really all our partners in industry.
Absolutely. Paul and I are always very humbled to be able to represent so many of you up here on Fridays on our Tremco Live broadcast, and we love featuring you and your story. So always keep that in mind. If you're watching us, if you want to engage with us, you just need to reach out to me, Marcy Tyler, and I will connect you with that opportunity so that we can bring you on and feature your challenge, feature your project, or even just anything that you feel would be interesting to share with that audience of ours, which is that construction industry. So thank you for joining us again this Friday. We are in part 2 mode of our panelization series. So this will be part 2 of our 3-part panelization series.
Yeah, I thought our part 1 was absolutely fantastic, Marcy. I can't wait to see what we have for part 2.
Yes, lots of good stuff for part 2. So if you missed part 1, you can see that on our YouTube channel. You can simply just do Tremco CPG Live, and you can actually sign up to receive them on the YouTube channel or watch a previous episode. I've lost track. I think we might be on number 75.
Yeah, I know we're in the 70s.
We're in the 70s. You're definitely in the 70s. So we once again appreciate the time and you all joining us on a regular basis. This came about because of COVID, and we've continued on because we've definitely heard such great feedback from all of you in terms of, you know, maybe something you learned, something you were able to share, and that is just exactly what we want to be able to do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Marcy. In the last couple of years, we've all just become a lot more comfortable with an online environment. I know in the end, what we build is in person. I always call it belly to belly.
Yes.
And that's where our people excel, is in the field, on-site support. So that never changed.
That never changed. Well, and I don't think it will. And I think what this did, I think it brought us to a point where people were more accepting maybe of a virtual setting, right? So now we're seeing more of a hybrid approach, right? Where earlier today, I presented with my coworker in DC to customers that were in Virginia. So I think that's what it's allowing us to do, is being able to be a little bit more resourceful maybe, but then of course, be belly to belly when we can.
Yeah, much wider reach, and certainly much more efficient. And the other thing to remind us, you know, Marcy, you and I are, well, we've been around a while. There's an entire generation that really embraces this form of communication.
Absolutely. So we're excited about it, excited about the technology and the innovation that we've seen in terms of, you know, just virtual engagements. And today's topic is no different in terms of innovation. Last week, we talked a lot about the history of panelization. Obviously, the importance of panelization is there. We're seeing the need to speed up construction, right? We're seeing the need of, you know, our labor force, right? A lot of people are going into other jobs or retiring, right? So we see that need. Quality control is something, shows that need for panelization, design flexibility, and of course, cost savings.
Yeah, I was going to say the design, every time we do one of these sessions, Marcy, I'm always, especially some of our applicators, right? If you look at some of the design work going on out there, it's remarkable.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So, you know, at this point, we would love to bring to you some of those design professionals, some of those creative folks that we get to work with on a regular basis. And they are our colleagues. Both Rick Bunting and Mike Barker are joining us again. So welcome to Tremco Live, guys.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good.
It's good to see you again, Rick and Mike.
Great to see you.
I love the uniform shirts. Very good.
Yeah.
We got the memo.
Wardrobe, I could have used a little powder to take the sheen off the forehead, but you know, makeup didn't make it, but wardrobe did.
Right.
I think every week they have 5 of those in a row, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
We're on the next
shirt. Well, and maybe for panelization series 3, we'll wear black too, Paul.
Okay.
We'll wear black Yeah.
Mike, we're going to mix it up. We'll wear a modulite next time.
Okay. Okay. You wear modulite. We're Tremco. Like Paul said. Well, no, you said you have white and blue. So is it black in your wardrobe?
I do have one black shirt, but it's an Ilbro shirt.
Oh.
So
Okay.
we're gonna throw some, throw a little bit of light on our European part.
Exactly.
A little support for those guys.
Yeah, so Rick and Mike, welcome back. We'll just do an introduction again for those of you that didn't catch series 1 last Friday. So Rick, Mike, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'll start with Rick.
Okay. I'm Rick Bunting. I am the program manager for Offsite Solutions, overseeing the Modulite panels. I've been in the construction industry since 1974, started out installing Dryvit products and was a plasterer, and then kind of worked for Dryvit back in the mid 80s as a regional sales manager for them, and then have worked in several panel fabricator shops across the country, and came back to work for Dryvit in about 5 years ago, I guess, to revitalize or to reinvigorate the panel program, the Tech 21 program, and then recently with the merger with Tremco and CPG Group, here I sit. So
Very good. And Mike Barker.
Right. My name's Mike Barker. I'm the sales director for Offsite Construction. I've been in the construction industry for over 20 years, not as long as Rick, but have a few years in the construction industry. So I started off my career in modular construction. So we did custom single family homes, custom multifamily, and then light commercial modular construction before I started my career at Tremco and worked with the Tremco products and the whole CPG group. So
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
That's great. I think, it's interesting to hear your collective years of experience. Obviously, if we add Paul and my collective years of experience, I always say this is the area we are in, right? Where else could we take this knowledge base beyond construction? I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were going to add all the numbers.
No, you're the numbers guy. I'm not. I would have you add.
It's too big.
It's too big. Paul's my numbers guy. So, but we're certainly happy to have you guys on. I loved last week going through the history, and we did touch on Feddelite as one of the modulate options. And I believe today we're going to talk more about Fedderlite, and then of course, Paul's favorite part is always those case studies, seeing the before and after. So I know we got some very good case studies that we'll be able to share. So I'll go ahead and pull those slides up for us all now. And I cheated a little on the intro for you guys when I talked about the reasons for panelization. It came right from one of our LinkedIn posts. So once again, I love our LinkedIn. We have both Dryvit and we have Tremco right now sharing information, as well as Nadura. Lots of great things. And they talked about the top 4 reasons to use panelized eaves, Paul. Speed of construction, quality control, design flexibility, and cost savings. So.
okay, so we can get right into it and go on to the next slide. Today we'll talk about Fedderlite as we have here. The Fedderlite panel system. Okay. So the Fedderlite panel system utilizes either an aluminum or a steel extrusion that is laced or hot wire cut into the foam, which allows you to make larger panels that have some structural integrity. The Fedderlite itself is an adhered system. And then the next one that we're going to show is the Fedderlite M, which is a mechanically applied system. So as with most of our adhesives are temperature sensitive. So to utilize the true benefit of prefabrication, if you're installing in the winter, we have a completely mechanically applied system. These panels weigh about 2.5 pounds a square foot, which makes them ideal solutions for the renovation industry, also for new construction, for access. This panel was created by one of our distributors back in the early 1980s. He was doing a large project on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and they were doing a shear wall, and they just didn't want to put a scaffolding up 35 stories and tented and adhere Dryvit system. So what they did was they came up with a way to do it in a shop and then install it in the field like that. So that was the genesis of Fedderlite. Dryvit purchased the rights to that panel and created a program called Tech 21. We can go to the next one, Marcy, and talk a little bit more about the panels themselves. So as with all of our panels on our Modulite website, we have all of the specification details, fabrication and installation instructions for all the panel types. The next one we can go, you can see with Fedderlite M, the same thing. And as we mentioned earlier, the greatest thing about these panels is you can achieve virtually any aesthetic that you want using all of our products. So if you want to show a masonry wall, if you want to show wood, if you want to show a cut stone look, or these are the various finish options for the stone series. And next we can show the masonry series. And after that, and just to take a quick pause there, we have what we call custom brick, which is a templated brick system. And then we also have new brick, which is a lightweight insulated brick veneer that uses a traditional type N or type S mortar. Both of these options can be used on the Fedderlite panel, on all of our panel systems. So you can use a series of washes on them. We have several textures, several sizes, modular up to Normandy and all in between, and just a great option for a lightweight, truly insulated CI brick system.
And I love that. I love that mention. So obviously these are just an example, right? These are just examples because you can do anything as it relates to that aesthetic need, especially from the masonry series and then onto the wood and metal, which is incredible. And I think we're going to feature pretty much several of these. And I love having them in here for just that reason, to show that customization. If we go back a few steps, when we talked about the Fedderlite right in the beginning here today, guys, if I'm looking at my building, is there a building that you would say, oh, you can't use Fedderlite on? Is there a situation?
Not really. I mean, you just have to have a sound substrate, flat sound substrate. If it's painted, you go mechanical. If it's clean masonry, you can adhere it. So you don't really have any restrictions with it. One of the big, go ahead, Marcy.
Well, and I was just thinking, if somebody's watching today and they're like, you know what, I would really like to know what my options are. I mean, that was exactly what they would do, is reach out to you Rick, or you Mike, to be able to do just that, right?
Right,
Exactly.
Right. So, and the trend today is, you see, if you go to the majority of the newer hotels, they have several finishes, whereas in the days past, they would all be in a metal panel, or they would all be brick, or they would all be stucco. And now you're seeing a mix of metal panel and stucco and wood. And the great part about using this type of a panel system is that you can get all of the looks, all of the aesthetics with one product. A big benefit to an owner. A general contractor only has to buy the job from one person. It's one hand to shake, as Mike always says. So just a great option for anybody building a building today.
Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that flexibility of going from one type of look to the next is so common everywhere we look. I think we're hard pressed to see a building that is made with just one type of facade.
Yeah, and then, Marcy, ever since I've been around you, been educated by you, it's all those interfaces.
Yes.
And the fact that Tremco's really excelled at handling all those interfaces between all those different transitions.
Yeah.
And I think what's really unique is,
go ahead, I'm sorry, Mike.
sorry, what's really unique about it is we can do it all with continuous installation panels, right? We can get the metal look, we can get the wood look, and keep that continuous installation and have all those connection points that we'll own with those panels. So that's what's really unique about us.
And that's what's so important, right? As we look at, and I do a presentation on the jacket of protection for your building, right? We're talking about your air, your water, and your thermal layer. And if you move from brick to stone to metal to whatever in some of those other types of methodologies versus using something like continuous insulated finish systems, you're missing out on that energy efficiency and that continuation and that peace of mind that you're going to actually have a building that's well protected. So I love that. Love that.
Okay. We can go to the next one and get a little bit into the panel itself. We can do a multitude of custom designs. We can do a corrugated with a metal look. The panel on the right is our finish called Ferros, which replicates a Core 10 type panel, which is a rusted look, and you can achieve a couple of different textures with it. So again, just that one source, that one person to deal with, from the architect side, detailing the panels all the same way for his exterior of his building, from the general contractor side with only buying with one, dealing with one contractor from his air and moisture barrier out, and then the owner only deals with one company should there ever be an issue. He has one person to call. So just a great benefit to utilizing these types of products.
And they really look like they really look like metal. And the benefit of having metal, people might think it's durability, but we've even proven that these are actually more durable in terms of, you know, dents and things like that than if you actually had metal.
Yeah, we had some great case studies in very harsh. I think the most recent one was next to it was a college environment where they like to practice lacrosse on the wall.
Yeah.
And the wall was impervious to it, as opposed to the prior masonry surface, which was banged up considerably, which they really wanted to refresh. I thought that one was priceless.
Yes,
It was.
It was. And I love this. And then the wood, it's unbelievable. I mean,
our finish is just really, you can do so much with them, and this is just a great example of a project that we did. Well, the one on the left are panels for a project we did in Colorado. The one on the right is a prototype building that you know, that's plaster, and it looks like wood. It's just awesome.
It's incredible, and I love that, because I mean, I've told the story where I think I was in Charleston, and I was mad because this building, you know, had all this mix of substrates, and I'm like, they should have used EIFS, and it was. When I got closer, I could tell that it was EIFS, and I'm like, oh, they did use EIFS.
Don't tell anybody that. And then we can do a multitude of profiles. That's one of the luxuries of working with EPS. You can cut it with a hot wire and pretty much cut any type of a design you want with it, and then you just coat it with our base coat mesh and finish.
Well, and I know you mentioned this earlier in our previous panelization broadcast, the first week, of not having the hot wire capability back then that we now have, right? Which really lends to that capability of really making things custom.
Right. You can go to the next, Marcy. So just give an idea, we have people, it's funny, we have people that want to put a shiplap design or a wood plank design on a building, but they don't want to do it in wood or vinyl. So here we are substituting products that people would never think would be a troweled on application and creating panels this way. And that's the whole purpose, is CI. And you know, CI is becoming such an important factor in building construction today. People want that insulation, and we can accomplish that using these panels.
Yes, the true benefits of continuous insulation, right, and being able to provide it in so many customizable ways is incredible.
Right. So I mentioned we have two different panel types with Fedderlite. We have Fedderlite and we have Fedderlite M. The one on the left would be an adhered system, where we have a couple of different types of adhesive that are cementitious or full-blown acrylic. Those can be applied to the back of the panel or onto the wall. The one on the right is the Fedderlite M, which is a new system that we introduced this year, where we put an actual mounting rail onto the wall, and then the panels drop onto that mounting rail. We can control water management by placing a horseshoe shim behind that rail, so it doesn't create a block for that water, so it won't hang up there. So they can be fully drainable as well, which is something that the industry is asking for, the design industry is asking for. So these are the two panel types within the Fedderlite family, and we can show a little bit more about the details and what's there. The back of the panel is typically exposed EPS. If you want to do it as a rain screen design, you can coat the back of the panel with base coat. The channels are on the back of the panel and shown there. So the one on the right is exposed so that you can hang off of it. The one on the left is just not necessary to coat the whole back of the panel. You do back wrap to encapsulate the edges, and you prime the edges of the panel to receive your sealant.
Well, and these are the things that you guys will work on. As we've mentioned before, you know, this isn't like a month project or 6-month project, right? That's what we're there for, to help you as the customer decide what it is that you need for your actual application, whether you need to finish the backside or not. So,
Right.
Work through all the details with them, right?
exactly.
Right. So these are just the different pieces of hardware that go into the panel or are used to install the panel, just to give everybody an idea. And all of this detailed information is, again, on the website, as I mentioned earlier. So
I think you told me, Rick, I think the biggest question is how do you do it, right? How are you able to, attach it and then also, build each one? So I think all this information is really helpful.
Right. So you can, we mentioned the hot wire machines. The early Fedderlite machine was a pneumatically operated hot wire that only did one wire at a time. We redesigned the machine with a company out of California. This can cut 6 wires at a time. You can cut a 4x10 piece of foam, and it cycles in about 20 seconds. So this machine is available and out there. We can also program it to cut different channel styles. You can cut aesthetic grooves in the EPS with it. Just everything we're working towards gearing up to speed the manufacturing and fabrication process. And we hope this year to be introducing a couple of newer things that will really hopefully excite the industry as much as it excites me. Bit of a nerd there.
Yeah, same. I love innovation and I love the idea. Once again, it's customizable, right? So if somebody's watching today and they have an idea of what they'd like, that's where you will reach out to either Rick or Mike to kind of help you come up with that custom situation for you. And any new innovation, we would love to be able to feature here. And I know you will reach out to me, Rick, when that happens.
So we'll kind of go through the manufacturing process. First step is to cut the grooves into the foam. If you look on the lower right side, you can see the profile of the Fedderlite channel cut into the foam. And that's a hot wire machine on the left that is used to cut that profile. And next, use our Fedderlite channel, which get cut to whatever the lengths are required for that panel. They're typically aluminum, but we do have some that use steel. But the normal extrusion is aluminum.
Okay.
That extrusion, there's a glue that's placed on the back of the EPS, and that extrusion is placed and pressed through the hot wire channel that's created, and that allows us to lump pieces or lace pieces of foam together and give you a larger panel. And if you think about it, we all know that EPS on its own is rather flimsy. So if you were to take a 4x8 piece of foam and put base coat and mesh on it without any type of a structural integrity, and you get up on a scaffold and you go and pick it up and a good gust of wind comes, you're going to have 2 panels in your hand instead of 1. So
right.
this extrusion gives it that integrity to be able to move it around.
Is there a limit in the size?
One of the advantages to this panel is the fact that it's lightweight. So if you think in terms of 2.5 pounds a square foot, if you had a 10x10 panel, that would be 100 square feet, 250 pounds. It can be picked up and moved with a crane or a hoist, but I always recommend that you kind of keep it down to where it's 100, maybe 100, 150 pounds, and think in that way so that it can be handled by the guys on the scaffolding. Because like I said, when you're out in the wind, this thing is like a big sail. So you want to make sure that you make something that's manageable. So I would generally say 8x8 is probably on the larger side. We certainly have some that are larger, and I think we have some pictures of some that are 8x12. So but that just was to fit the design of that building. So you just want to keep it thinking in terms of weight when you fabricate or design.
Okay, and once again, that's something you guys will help out with, right? So, and I think last week you gave an example of being able to be palletized and fit in an elevator, right? For a parapet area. So depending on the application, you guys can help out with that too. Those
part of the process, thinking it through, right? Figuring out how we're going to get it there and how we're going to do it is part of that process.
Exactly right. Getting it there and then getting it in place.
So in typical fashion, we put our base coat and our mesh on the outside of the panel. We back wrap it on the edges and onto the back of the panel of 4 inches, so that when the panel is installed, it's completely encapsulated. The joints, you can go to the next slide. We have the finishes are troweled on. There's you can use heavier mesh, as we mentioned. Impact being a potential issue there, we have what we call panzer mesh, and you can literally take a hammer and smash the heck out of it, and it won't do anything. I had a guy one time that said, "Oh, I don't want to use that stuff. If you hit it, it gets dented." And he said it was a panzer sample that I had there, and he took and I said, "Grab a hammer and give it a whack." Well, he took that. He had it on his conference table. He took that hammer and smashed it, and the hammer came up and it caught him right here on the glass.
Oh my God.
His glasses, and I'm like, oh my goodness, but inside I was feeling a little bit of redemption because it didn't sample at all. So, you know, I thought that was kind of interesting.
That panzer mesh, absolutely, there's a difference. I think there's a video of somebody breaking a baseball bat, hitting the panzer mesh. So.
Yeah, it's very tough. So,
Yeah, very tough.
We add the heavier grade meshes depending upon what we're dealing with as far as traffic. Anytime you're in a high traffic area, I would always recommend you do that. Then the panels are wrapped up, and you can see this is probably pretty much a standard size panel. Panels are wrapped up depending upon the finish. We recommend using different types of packaging material. They can be palletized, they can be placed in crates, and we can get them to the job and ship them in a pretty simple way. The base coat is installed to save time or save space in the shop because the panels are so light and easy to move around. Most shops have drying racks for this type of panel, and they'll take the panels off of the benches and place the panels in the drying racks to allow for them to dry, and then the next finish application will be done the next day, or the next coating application will be done the next day after everything is dry. All of our panel edges get a primer on them, and that primer is designed to receive the sealant, whether it's a Tremco and wet sealant and Baccarat, or whether it's a will seal. We find that the sealants adhere better and perform better against a primer versus the actual Dryvit type finishes. So the panels themselves, the edges are primed, and then the finish is put onto the face of the panel.
Nice.
And it's
custom work.
Yeah. So you can see these are fairly good sized panels. As I mentioned before, these are this is a job where, from an aesthetic standpoint, they wanted to reduce the number of joints, so they went with large panels, but they also used a hoist to lift them, so they weren't being handled by hand. So on this job,
So they knew they wanted less joints, and they accommodated for it from an installation perspective. So
correct. And it was a custom brick. They used custom brick on the project. So having an expansion joint on a smaller profile panel just wouldn't look as good with a brick panel. So they went with a larger look. And if you look at the thickness, that's all EPS. So they can follow the contours of what they have on their substrate. And they have a large, 5-inch thick, 6-inch thick EPS. So with EPS being 3.85 R, you have an R20 on that panel, R20 plus. So
that I think is what's, so incredible, is that ability to add that additional R value in so many different ways.
Right.
It's incredible.
Okay. And these are actually the brick panels for that job. This was a hotel in Columbus, Ohio. That's custom brick, our custom brick panel, our custom brick finish. Just a great looking product. And you have a brick panel that weighs 3 pounds a square foot, 2.5 pounds a square foot. Just a great application for renovation.
And then we've got them numbered, wrapped, and crated, and ready to go.
That is correct. So we build crates, and most often the fabricators will put them on a skid, but sometimes they'll have LTLs and they'll ship them out wherever they're going to go. These panels were made in Canada and shipped to Staten Island. So they put them in crates and put them on a common carrier and shipped them down to the job site. These were the ones on the right were placed. They built crates for them. They were all 3x10. We try and work in many times. We try and work in a standard modular size for a building. So the panels on the right were a 3x10. The ones on the left were they had a connection. They were adding a second and third floor to an existing building. So they did Outside panels, which is our steel stud panel, but the connection, they had to have some pretty tricky flashing integration. So they used Fedderlite to plug in. So the panels were finished halfway, and then they put a Fedderlite panel onto the panel after it was installed and after the flashing was done. So it just was a fast, and again, speed was of the essence. It was a hospital renovation. So worked out very well using Fedderlite. And we do that often. We have contractors that mix and match different panel types on projects just to facilitate the speed and making the job work a little smoother.
That's awesome. And that just goes back to the tried and true, right? It's been something that's been done for so long that, you know, that experience lends us to be pretty innovative and meet the customer's needs.
Right. So the normal method for installation, like I said, can be either adhered or can be mechanically fastened. Whenever we adhere, we use a mechanical fastener to hold the panel in place until that adhesive dries. So that's typically done through the joint. And then that's why we extend that panel or that extrusion a little bit beyond the edge of the panel, and that gets buried in the sealant. You can also go inside and screw through the stud and the sheathing from the inside and catch the extrusion. So we call that back fastening. So just to show a couple of examples of that. And then those joints, of course, again, are sealed. The panels are installed in a number of different ways. You can make outside corner panels, and this just shows the installation. You typically work off of a lift. You don't need to have a full-blown pipe staging on the outside of the building, which makes it faster. You can work off of swing staging, just to show the different examples and methods for installation.
And I think,
yeah. And those are your brick panels that I was talking about, which just,
and this is one of those great examples of showing multiple different types of facade look, you know, in one building. So.
Right. Go next. We'll get an example. So that was the project. It's in Columbus, Ohio, and those are reflected smooth finish panels on Fedderlite on the front. I defy anybody to go to that building and tell me it's not an ACM
Right.
composite panel. There is just no way you can tell the difference in the rest of it, even with the custom brick. Again, it looks like a masonry building with a huge savings on cost, and also the benefit of CI, having a CI panel on the exterior of this hotel. And they had no access for this building either. They did everything off of swing staging. That was why they prefabricated it to begin with. I
remember Rob Little was on Tremco Live telling us that with you, Rick, how to shut down a street if he had to install in a different way, with what the cost associated with just that is. So access, access is a huge thing. Right.
Rob's one of our premier fabricators and just does a great job. And so we just love the work he does. So you can see that those larger custom brick panels on the right, having a joint every 4 feet would just not lend itself really well to an aesthetically pleasing facade. So they made it large, and to his credit, they did a great job with the layout and the installation of this job. It's just awesome.
Looks great. And I know we have a few more case studies and examples just to show the versatility and capability of these systems.
This was an existing facade on a shopping center in Staten Island, originally designed for an ACM panel. We did it in Fedderlite with reflected on a textured finish. Just a huge savings. We saved them, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of $30 a square foot from the ACM panel to this reflected Fedderlite panel.
Wow, and then once again, your energy efficiency too, right? That is incredible.
Right, and in last week's presentation, I talked about a project in Rhode Island called Donovan Manor. We did this back in 1987, 88. These pictures were taken about 2 years ago. The project looks awesome. I mean, it's 40 years old, and it's just incredible looking.
It does.
A little less than 40.
It looks great.
I need the numbers guy to do the math on that for me.
I know, that's Paul's our numbers guy.
So we have a facade program going on in up in Minnesota on a Target store. They're experimenting with using Fedderlite panels to dress up the facade. So you don't have to do the whole outside of the building. You can make accent panels, and it's economically viable to do this, and it goes fast. They can go in the evening. after they don't have to shut the store down, they don't have to set up a bunch of scaffolding. They can go in and hang these panels in 5 or 6 hours and be done with it. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And speaking of incredible looks, I love this one. I love what this one looks after. So these are the before.
This is quite a job. It was an existing poured-in-place concrete spandrel pilaster type design, just ugly, and had been painted several times. You couldn't really put anything on the outside of it without coming up with an attachment method that could be mechanically done. They wanted to get some insulation on it. They were converting it to a hotel and apartments. And so Fedderlite panels, this was done by Skyline out of Chicago. This job is in South Bend, and they did a wonderful job. Nice job.
Look at that. That's
a big difference, huh?
A big difference. That's incredible.
That's remarkable.
Isn't it? I mean,
looks like a brand new building.
It does. You would never have guessed it is the same building. Unbelievable. Well, and I think we got this next one here that I know you, Rick, worked on this for quite a while. These are the after pictures. We do have some before, but great case study for you to share with us.
Right. So this was actually the first project that I worked on when I came back to work for Dryvit. They had one of our contractors, ARI, out of Seattle, or project they were looking at. The owner had gone down the road of looking at recladding the building with a metal panel. The pricing just came in very high, and when we show the next couple of pictures, we'll show you what we had to deal with and what we had to do. But it's also a great example of integrating a lot of Tremco CPG products. So there was a stone facade on this, a matrix system, both on concrete and frame with sheathing. This aggregate, it's not like your normal aggregate facade system. These stones are 1 inch to 1.5 inches in diameter, and like I used to call this system rent-a-stone. These stones started to fall. And people on the sidewalk, this is in Bremerton, right on Pacific Avenue, right in the heart of Bremerton, Washington. And so the stones started to fall, so they had to put up sidewalk protection to protect the citizens walking below, and they had to reclad the building. They were going to strip everything off, and we said, we don't think you have to do that. So we put an air and moisture barrier on the existing facade. And then we can go to the next slide and show what we wound up doing was putting up a girt system on the outside, mechanically attaching it, and then we attached the panels to that girt system. We used one of our other sister companies to do concrete restoration with the Euclid. We used sealants from Tremco on the panels. Everything was done with lifts rather than pipe staging. Just a great example of what you can accomplish with a lightweight panel. With the girt and everything that was on there, I think we probably added about 6 pounds a square foot to the exterior of the building, which is not a tremendous amount of load on it.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And not having to remove the stone, because who knows what they would uncover. Removing the stone and the timeline associated with having to remove the stone. So that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Marcy. I frequently make the point that in a building of that age, it's usually it's considered a hazmat site. If you're 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
And just the setting up for the hazardous removal alone can exceed the entire cost of the renovation.
Yeah.
Right.
It could restrict what they could do even because of it. I think we've got another one here, which includes our wood grain.
Oh, I like this one.
Yes.
So our distributor out in Eagle, Colorado was building a new warehouse. They wanted to kind of maintain the same look of the town, and they were putting Dryvit on the rear portion of the building, and they had told our sales guy that they were going to be putting one of our competitor cement fiber panels on there, and he kind of read them the riot act, and so we convinced them that this is the way to go. So the wood grain, and on our YouTube channel, there's a great video that shows the job of it. So, but you can just see that I think there's another close-up.
There's a close-up picture.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, just like I said before, you look at that ACM panel on the Columbus project, you look at this from the parking lot, and just it looks like wood, but you don't have to stain it, you don't have to paint it, you don't have to worry about it. That's the nice thing about the integrally colored synthetic finishes. They last a very, very long time. So you've got sealant joint maintenance 10, 15, 20 years out. And if you want to change the color, you can. There's a texture in the wood. You can do all that. So just a great application done by our.
This picture shows it. I mean, it's incredible. And once again, you know, so customizable. So you dream it up, we can help you get there. I think this is a great example of that. What's going on here?
And if you want to get real crazy, this is one of the you can do. EPS is an amazing material. It's just so easily formed and shaped. So this was a panel that they had talked about doing in a three-dimensional aluminum composite look, and just impossible to do. So the foam was sculpted into this design and then coated with base coated mesh, and then we use a product called Skimmit, which levels it out nice and tight and smooth, and then we sprayed a reflected finish on it. So it looked like a reformed metal panel. Just a super cool project.
Super cool.
There are a number of really interesting jobs out there. I wish we had time to show them all. I did a project back in 1987, 88 in New York City. They converted a Macy's building into an apartment complex, and they asked us if we could do Fedderlite panels on the bulkhead. They had gotten a price to do them in precast concrete or GFRC, and they were going to weigh too much. So we made lotus leaves that were approximately 10 feet tall, and they projected off the building about 3 feet, and we carved them all out of EPS. And I was in the city last year, and I should have put pictures up of it. I was in the city last year and I saw them, and it's just amazing. I had guys physically carve out this foam and shape it like a lotus leaf, and it's just very cool to see.
We'll have to include it in session 3. We'll locate those pictures and we can include it. And this is just incredible. Like, once again, that's where Rick and Mike can help you. If there's something you are dreaming up that you want to be able to do, you're going to be able to do it in a lightweight application, which I think is key. Rick mentioned this earlier, that some of the ones we featured here today are YouTube videos that you guys can watch. You can see the one, the Fedderlite wood grain system. We have the Bremerton project as well. And then I love the integrated wall solutions, because that shows you that integration of so many different types of wall solutions that are available. We mentioned last week about a fabricator program. That is something that you guys can reach out to Mike for. And then, of course, wrapping it all up together is always the ability, as we did on Bremerton that Rick mentioned, combining Euclid for your patch and repair, you know, different types of Vulcan coatings on your balcony, different types of Tremco sealants, all coming together for that whole idea of a power of one. So lots of great stuff that we were able to share today, guys. Once again, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing stuff. So,
Marcy, this was even more amazing than part 1. I can't wait to see part 3.
I know. It's incredible. So don't worry, everybody. This is part 2. We have part 3 coming up next Friday. But any final words?
Part 3 is Outsolite. Outsolite is our workhorse. It's a structural panel, and you want to build a big panel, you can build a big panel with Outsolite, and it's just it's what's used the majority of new construction. Can be used on renovation, but great system, and I'm really looking forward to showing it to everybody.
Yeah, I think Rick did a great job of showing everybody all the different options with continuous insulated panels, and I think you know, everybody can dream up something unique to do, and we can figure out a way to make it work for them.
That's right. And I think we mentioned it in the last series, but I'll say it again. Obviously, Mike Barker has a great sales team connecting the dots across North America. But if you have a Tremco rep you're already working with, they will also connect you back with Mike or one of his team members. So you've got a project that you think this will work, Rick and Mike can help you with their team, as well as your other on the street.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Yep,
Thanks,
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mike and Rick. Stay tuned, everybody. Next week, we will close it off with our third panelization series, and Rick's going to show us those lotus flowers, those petals.
I will.
I'll remind you. Thanks, everybody.
All right, see you
All
guys.
right, thank you.
Very good. Thank you all.